Hi, I'm Ross. I'm a teacher, and I'm really excited to share with you today a discovery that I've made, even though it's a little bit controversial, because this discovery nearly cost me my job. But don't worry, if you're a parent of a child who's either 8 or 9 years old and they're struggling with math, then you're going to want to listen to what I'm about to say, because this can literally transform your child's future in as little as 15 minutes a day. I'm going to share some stories with you of real children that have gone through the process that I'm about to explain, and they have made tremendous progress. They are children that were once struggling who are now thriving. So, a little bit about me so you know who this is that's talking to you. My name's Ross. I'm a teacher. I have over a decade of experience working in schools. Over the last 5 years, I've really started to focus on math, to figure out what it is that allows some children to really thrive and succeed, whilst others fall further and further behind. The children that I work with are aged 8 to 9, and this is the age group that I teach every single day in school. Now, what you're going to learn is 3 really, really important secrets. The first one is about the one skill that schools just skip over. And if your child manages to master that, they can make accelerated progress. One of the children that you're going to find out about, a boy called Christopher, actually completed an entire year worth of math work in just 3 months. The next thing that you're going to find out about is a special study that's just come out of Harvard that explains how home learning is actually even more effective than learning in school, particularly if your child is low on confidence, which is amazing news for parents that maybe think, oh, I'm not very good at math, I can't help, or I don't have the time to work with my child. Don't worry, home learning in the form that I'm about to explain it to you can be even more effective than what your child is doing in school. And then finally, secret number 3, if you're ever concerned that your child isn't focusing or at home, there's always something else that they would rather do than schoolwork, then there is a forgotten theory from a Russian theorist going back 100 years ago now. Teachers know about this, but they don't use it. When you use the teachings of this theory properly, children become glued to the work in front of them. As if they were playing a video game or watching TV, they get absorbed and completely engaged in their work, particularly math work. Super interesting, I can't wait to share it with you. Now, what's going on? Why are there so many problems in school just now? The truth is, teachers just overcomplicate the work. When we are going through our training, whether at university or as part of our training course, we are learning from people who are just inexperienced. Now, I know that a lot of the teachers that are at university have taught for a very, very long time, but most of them haven't been in schools for quite a while. So they are teaching us the methods that they used many, many years ago, and the world has moved on since then. And aside from that, there was even one tutor whilst I was at university who described how amazing it was to be a teacher and how jealous she was of us young teachers going into the world of work. But that kind of confused me because she only spent 3 years in the classroom before becoming an academic. And that's part of the problem. These are academics. They're theorists, far more interested in the theory side of teaching rather than the practical teaching itself, which leaves us teachers just delivering a curriculum that we don't really stand behind, that doesn't give children the progress they need. And who misses out? It's parents, it's children. And maybe you're feeling like that just now. Maybe you feel like your child isn't making progress and you don't know what to do about it. You're really not alone. Even in the UK, where I grew up, 44% of children aged 8 to 9 are working below the expected standard. In the US, it's only slightly better, but it's not great. 38% of children are working below the standard. This is something that's happening all over. Now, again, this is not your fault. It's not your child's fault either. Some parents really need to hear that. So I hope you hear me as I say it, that it's not your fault. It shouldn't be your job to work with your child. However, it's become the case that children will only make progress if they're being supported at home. The system is broken by design, and nothing is going to change. I've spoken with teachers who have taught for longer than I've been alive, and they say, it's always been this way. Some children struggle, some children do well. But that's not good enough. However, it's the way it is, and nothing's going to change anytime soon, which means if you need your child to catch up, if you need your child to make that progress, it's going to have to happen at home. But fortunately, I'm going to explain exactly how to do it. Now, before I get into this, it really did nearly cost me my job. The story that I'm about to explain to you, it was so groundbreaking, which is going to seem funny when I actually describe what it is that I did, but it really did nearly get me into so much trouble. But it's so important that I share this with you, because once you understand this one thing that your child is missing, they're going to be able to catch up, just like the hundreds of other children that have gone through this. Now, Elgin. Really, this is the kid that started it all. At the very start of the year, 3 years ago, he came to my classroom. It was just after the summer vacation. And it sounds bad to talk about a child in this way, but he just looked rough. He had big bags under his eyes, and he held himself with his shoulders slumped over. And when he came to the classroom, I tried to be as optimistic as possible. I said, "Good morning, Elgin," and he just grunted at me and practically dragged himself into the room. He clearly didn't want to be there. If you're nodding along to this and you're thinking, yes, this actually sounds like my child who just doesn't want to be in school, then understand, Elgin's story is really going to resonate with you. Now, Carla, his mother, she was also tired. Also worried and also exhausted because year after year she was seeing the same pattern that he just didn't want to be in school. And the moment that she came up to me and actually introduced him, she said, "My name is Carla. I'm Elgin's mum. He is not a math kid. He really struggles in math. In fact, he was so worried about coming back to school today that he barely slept last night." Obviously, first impressions are very important, and this was not the best first impression for me to have with one of the parents. But I really empathise because year after year, she had had this experience of Elgin coming to school, Elgin struggling in math, talking to the child's teacher, and getting some guidance, some advice, but none of it really making a difference. He was continuously getting support, but nothing was changing. He was still near the bottom, if not at the bottom of the class. At home, she tried downloading worksheets. She tried doing online lessons, looking for YouTube tutorials, AI apps, which is a pandemic in itself at the moment. These are just glorified screen time that the novelty wears off as soon as your child has tried all the buttons. That's it, over. Games and bribes. I can feel a few people nodding, even just now, bribing your child with rewards just to try and get them to do work. Looking at the teacher reports, trying to figure out from this report, what am I supposed to do? They're talking in teacher jargon that I don't understand, using skills that I've never learned, and I can't teach this to my child. And even, she was explained to me, she tried the sneaky practice sessions, when you try and sneak math into your conversation whilst you're in the car on the way to school, or whilst you're at the shop and you're asking them to try and add some things up. But children are switched on, and they're smart, and they understand when you're doing that, and Elgin was getting very, very upset whenever his mum tried to do that. It would make him really, really frustrated. Have you had that too? So, what was wrong? We did the baseline assessment, which is basically the test at the very start of the year so I can see what the children have remembered from the previous year. Elgin scored 5% on that test, which put him right at the very bottom of the class. When I spoke to Carla, his mum, at the end of the day, she was disappointed, but she wasn't surprised. It was no different to anything that happened in previous years. And in school, we tried interventions. On a morning, Elgin would go with the teaching assistant and try and practice some of the stuff that we were doing in class. We got physical resources so he could see it in front of him and try and manipulate it to understand the calculations. And then even someone to sit with him in the classroom, but none of it was making a difference. And at home, he was saying things like, "I can't do it." He was comparing himself to the other people's. He could tell that he was being taken out of the class whilst others weren't. And that just confirmed to him he was doing things wrong. He would say things like, "I'm dumb and I'm stupid," or "I can't do it, I hate math." And that was really starting to weigh on his own self-esteem. The meltdowns, the arguments, the complete avoidance of doing extra tasks at home. And it was going into all other areas of his life too. So again, speaking with Carla, she'd had lots of meetings with other teachers, but it was really getting to the point where this was the third year in a row that nothing was getting better, and she felt like she tried everything. She then hired a tutor to come to the house, and she said that this tutor had been coming to the house for 3 months, working 2 days a week, picking up $60 per session. Now, that's about the right price range. Most tutors charge between $40 and $100 per hour, so the price was fine, but the problem was what this guy was telling Carla. Now, I've done tutoring myself. I know other tutors, and it can be fantastic so long as it works and so that you build that honest relationship with the parent. This tutor was just treating it like another payday. He was telling Carla what she wanted to hear so that he could keep coming. And Carla really felt like she was doing something, and she felt that at least she could get rid of some of that guilt that meant that Elgin was struggling, and she was trying to do something about it. So I couldn't be honest with her and tell her that the tutor really wasn't worth it, that she was also wasting money there as well. And she said something that really stuck. Maybe you'll resonate with this as well. That it felt like there was a storm on the horizon, because she knew at some point in the future, whether it was when he was 14, 15, 16, maybe getting ready for university, that he was going to have trouble in math that was going to have a real impact on his academic studies. And she could kind of forget about it in the moment. For now, she could say, "Let's go do some reading. Maybe let's go play a game. Let's go to the cinema. Let's see your friends. Let's do something else," rather than thinking about math. Because we can distract ourselves now, like the storm that's far away in the distance. You can turn away from it, but you know eventually it's going to come. And eventually, she knew she was going to have to deal with his math trouble. Now, here is the big part of the story, that I made a mistake. And I was taking all of the data from all of the children, so looking at their scores and putting them in this enormous spreadsheet on Microsoft Excel. We have these in school, and it's got every single child within the year group. So this was all the 8 and 9-year-olds in the year group, and it showed you their scores, arithmetic scores and reasoning scores. So I was inputting them, all the numbers. I then went to press the sort button so I could just see the ones only from my class, but I clicked on the arithmetic column by accident. Now, in case you don't know, there are 2 parts that we are assessing children on at age 8 to 9. We have arithmetic, which is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Then we have reasoning. Reasoning is the application of these skills. Think of it as the word problems that you might remember from school. Something like, Jeff goes to the store, he buys 55 pineapples and eats 12 of them. How many does he have left? He probably also has a sore stomach. That was quite a terrible example, but I hope you get the point. Now, a lot of teachers will tell you, well, reasoning is harder. And they'll say that because the smarter children do better in reasoning. The score that they get on their reasoning test is always higher than the children who are struggling. Now, when I sorted the columns, I saw that actually across the 170 pupils that were in the year group, there was a perfect correlation between a high reasoning score and a high arithmetic score, which meant one thing. Surely the core skills of arithmetic, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, they must be learned first in order to understand the rest of math. Now, if you're not a teacher and you've not known about this before, that probably seems extremely obvious, but I've already explained. For years, teachers overcomplicate things. And the truth is, this probably has been spotted before. But because there's so much to cover within the curriculum, the amount of time that children learn arithmetic is nowhere near enough. But I thought, Elgin's struggling. Let's focus just on those core skills, and hopefully it should make the rest of math work for him. So we started looking at the core skills. How do we add 100? How do we times by a one-digit number? How do we times by a two-digit number? Putting all of these things together and trying to teach the actual methods behind them. And he started making some progress, but it was still slow. Then I started to think about, what is it that I'm missing? So I went back and I looked at over 3 years of these specific types of arithmetic assessments. And I saw that if you want to get every question right, there's 15 core skills you must be able to do. And if Elgin could learn these 15 core skills, then he can get every single question on the paper correct, which should help him with the rest of math. Now, it then showed me that these 15 core skills needed to be learned in a specific order. There's no point in just jumping in and saying, how do we add 1,000? Because you can't do that until you've learned how to add 100. You can't learn how to add 100 before you've learned to add 10, and so on and so on. So I put these 15 core skills in a very specific order. And the change was incredible. Immediately, he started to respond positively. He started to try even when he got things wrong because it made sense to him. The little steps that came one after the other, he was building upon that prior knowledge, and he could actually access the work that was in front of him. So the assessment, part 2. This is where we went back and had a look at more work for the children to do the next assessment. And we did the assessment after daily practice of these 15 core skills. And Elgin's result, after scoring 5% in his baseline, was 78%. Not perfect, of course, but an amazing, amazing improvement. And all of that happened in just 27 days. There were tears at home time. He went to his mum, Carla, and it was quite a special moment for them. But it was more of a moment for me of thinking, all that we changed was focusing on those core skills. And the change was amazing. So Carla then ended up going and speaking to lots of other parents. Here's where I got into a little bit of trouble. She saw how much he was growing in confidence. She saw how he changed at home, that no longer did challenges worry him. He actually embraced it and he thought, this is something I want to try out. I know because I've proven to myself that I can make progress, that I can actually do these core skills in math, that I can do everything else. But Carla then started talking to the other parents and saying what an amazing achievement it was with Elgin. And the other parents, they then wanted my time. They wanted me to come and work with their child so that their child could get support as well. So I started working with 1 or 2 of them at their house, doing some tutoring. And that's when I found out I'm actually not allowed to do that. Within my contract from the school, I'm not allowed to go and work with the other students in that cohort. So I had to change my approach a little bit so that I didn't lose my job. And one of the parents said, well, could you just make me a video? And I thought, yes, I guess I could. So I started making a video of how to go through the 15 core skills one by one. And the response was amazing. They said that their child loved it. They actually sat and they watched and they learned. So suddenly I had lots of different parents asking for these videos and I created more of them, until Arithmetic Mastery was born. And this was the first time I'd put together all 15 core skills in a sequence of lessons for parents to have a go at. And since then, hundreds of 8 to 9-year-olds have made progress using these 15 core skills. And that really is the big secret. If your child is struggling, if you have listened to the story of Elgin and you have thought, that sounds a lot like the trouble that my child has had, then just know this is what it takes. Mastering arithmetic. How do you master arithmetic? The 15 core skills taught in order. With that, they're able to access the rest of math. Now, what can you do? Help your child stop struggling. Fill in those gaps. Teach them the 15 core skills. However, you might be wondering, why is this not taught in school? Is this not what they're going to school for? Is this not what is happening inside school? But the truth is, the curriculum focuses on things that are not in arithmetic. It's only a tiny part of the curriculum. Now, that doesn't mean that other parts of math aren't important, but it's just that there's so much for children to learn that unless your child is keeping up and moving very, very fast, and remember, all children learn at different rates, they do not get that focused time to learn arithmetic properly. But mastering it can really help them improve. And A great example of this is just how fast it can make children improve is Christopher. Now, Christopher is a really interesting story because when he joined the school, he was actually placed in the wrong year group. So he was supposed to be in a class of children that were 7 and 8 years old. However, the admissions team, and this happens far more than you would like to believe, it's pretty terrible. The admissions team put him in a year group of 8 to 9-year-olds. So he was literally 1 year ahead of where he was supposed to be. He was completely overwhelmed with the work. But by following the system, by going through the videos, the 15 core skills, he actually managed to finish in the top 10% of math performers in the new age group. He literally skipped an entire year worth of math, made progress in just 3 months. And this is really part of why it's so important to be learning at home, especially during the pandemic. And a lot of people's ideas of what home learning is like, when it's delivered properly, it can be as effective or even better, according to Harvard Extension School. And this is particularly important for children that are of lower ability. So if you're thinking that your child is struggling and that they can only work if you are sat with them, but you don't have the time, or you're thinking, oh, but I don't know how to help them in math, math is so complicated, learning from home with the right resources can make amazing things happen for your child, particularly if they're low in confidence. Because in school, some children who are feeling low in confidence about their ability are a little bit intimidated. They find it difficult to sit in the classroom and see other children doing really well. And Casey's story is a great example of that. She was selective mute, which means she would simply choose not to speak. It's not that she didn't have a voice, she just chose not to speak because she was so shy. And she didn't want to participate. And seeing all the other children raising their hand and being chosen by the teacher was just too intimidating for her. And her reports would say, when she's asked a question, she doesn't respond. Now, one thing that she actually said to her mother before she started the Arithmetic Mastery program was that it's like the other children already know the answer before the teacher has even taught it. She couldn't see and she couldn't understand. How did they know what to do? How did they know how to answer that question? But now, of course, you know, don't you? They had arithmetic already mastered. Casey did not. So she then learned the 15 core skills from home. And what she liked about it was that it was self-paced. She could choose to pause, to play, to answer the questions at her own pace. It just felt like it was her and the teacher without anyone else judging. And she grew in confidence so much. The next report that her mum then received from the school said that she was participating so much more. She was raising her hand and she was getting better results. Now, this is the next part, which I'm sure you're quite excited about. If your child is someone that sits at home and is able to focus extremely well when playing games, watching TV, or doing something they really enjoy, but then when you ask them to do homework or math, that's when you get the meltdown, that's when they struggle to focus. Are you nodding? Perhaps. This happens with a lot of children. They don't like working at home. It's fairly normal because there's lots of other things that they would rather do. But this problem was literally solved 100 years ago. Nearly 100 years ago. It's by a Russian theorist called Lev Vygotsky. Now, he has this theory called ZPD, Zone of Proximal Development. Now, teachers learn about this at university. I'm going to end up sounding like one of those academics now. But we learn about this at university or during our teacher studies. And what it teaches us is that children are able to make progress, so they're able to do work that is more challenging than where they are currently at, if there's someone to help them, a teacher or a parent or someone else that can support them to get to that level. But there's a second part to this theory that nobody talks about and nobody ever uses. And what I did was take it and add it into the 15 core modules. When you give a child work that is just slightly above their difficulty level, they are able to use their prior knowledge, so they're able to use what they already know to figure it out. But the magic here is that because they have to use prior knowledge, their brain becomes fully engaged in trying to solve that problem. It's literally like a fishing hook that drags them into the work and forces them to have a go at the question. Now, I've seen this happen in real life with certain children who have real difficulty when it comes to attention, and Adam is the perfect example of that. He had ADHD, which meant that it was particularly difficult for him to stay focused. And whenever he would do work, it was very, very frustrating because his mind was thinking about other things. He saw something else that was far more interesting than what was right in front of him. Often the homework sessions would end in tears. He would be angry. And again, when it came to TV, when it came to video games, when it came to something else that he enjoyed, it gave him that full focus, but not with homework. But why is that? Why was it that he was able to focus on a video game and focus on TV, but not on the homework? And it's because of the progression. Video games have this built in. You can make progress in a game because the next task that you need to complete, the next quest, whatever it is, or level, my video game lingo here, the next level can be completed because you've just done something that was a little bit easier than it beforehand. Okay, so there's level 1 and then level 2. You're not going from level 1 to level 10. That's not how it works. And it's the same when you take in the 1% progression idea with the zone of proximal development, of making the work just ever so slightly harder so that children can keep making incremental progress. Now, when Adam tried this, he thought it was amazing, and he actually could get excited about the next challenge because it was difficult enough to make him focus, but accessible enough that he was ready to try. Now, he was scoring 8% at school. After he went through the entire Arithmetic Mastery program, he ended up scoring 100% at the end. 100%. And it showed that when he's able to focus, he's a very, very bright boy, which is something that the teachers were not seeing in school and mum and dad were not seeing at home. And to have that relief that, no, my child is capable was amazing for his parents. But what impressed them even more was that he actually managed to form a new habit and to be so consistent over 60 days, doing work every single day independently. It really set him up for the rest of his life. This is something we do as we grow older. We have to have more focused time, especially moving into high school and university, to be able to focus and work independently. So not only did his math scores improve, but he truly mastered a new skill for life. Now, I want to ask you a question. You already know that mastering arithmetic is what your child needs to do to make progress. You know that they need to learn from home because it's not going to happen in school. And that the 15 core skills bring your child in because of the way that they are all structured to help them make progress and allow them to catch up in math. Now, you have 3 options from here. Do you do this yourself? Do you go and get hold of the 15 core skills and teach them to your child? Do you have the time to do that, to find all of those resources? Are you going to hire a tutor? And is the tutor going to be reliable? Are they going to be able to teach these 15 core skills the way that you want using somebody else's system? Or would you like to listen to my offer so that you could get started today? If you do, please stick around. I've got 5 minutes just to explain to you exactly what this offer is, because I know it can and will help your child, just as it helped Elgin, just as it helped Casey, just as it helped Christopher, just as it helped Adam. Learning those core skills, focusing at home, making amazing progress, building their confidence, going from no longer being at the bottom of the class to being secure in math. And if that's something that sounds interesting for your child, if that's what you want for them, then please listen up. Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 is the current form of the Arithmetic Mastery program. This is what I gave to those parents who made progress at home with their child. It's what Adam used to no longer be thinking about everything else, but sitting down and focusing and working. It's what Casey used to no longer feel like she was being judged, but to make confidence and make progress with her confidence day after day after day. It's what I did with Elgin to take him from 5% to 78% in just 27 days. Now, the Arithmetic Mastery program takes into account 5 years of my focus on math. It's got all 15 core skills in order with proven results, and in total it's 91 lessons. You can see images of them just there, of me teaching your child using the watch, copy, practice method. Your child watches me do the method, they then copy their own version of it, and then I let them practice with instant feedback right after. I've also included in there lots of mindset lessons to help them think about what is it that I need to do to improve, and embed those stories in their mind that it is possible and that they can make progress. As well as that, I'm going to include 27 assessments. These are full arithmetic tests and also assessments for all of the 15 core skills. The children loved doing this. When Christopher was doing this during his 3 months of skipping a whole year of school, he loved seeing how much he was progressing each and every week to get better and better at math. That progress tracking lets you see for yourself the actual progress that they are making. You can see the real impact, and these assessments are directly related to the 15 core skills. So the value of this is $249, which is the cost of the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 course, the 91 lessons of the 15 core modules, and $199 is the assessments and the trackers, which means the total of what you get is $448. However, I've not stopped there because I want to make sure that you have everything you need to get your child making progress. So for that, I'm going to give you access to me. Within the course, there is options and there is the availability for you to send me questions and say, I was a little bit unsure about that, my child struggled with this part, or my child thought this lesson was amazing, thank you so much. Now, here is where you can share those wins with me and ask those questions if you're ever feeling stuck. Instead of me, you could go and get a tutor, of course, and charging anywhere between $40 and $100 per hour. But if you wanted to get a tutor for every single one of the 91 sessions that I teach, that could cost you anywhere between $3,000 and $9,000. I charge $129 a month for my one-to-one services with parents. And because it normally takes children around about 3 months, I've said that is $387, which brings the total of the offer today to $835. As well as that, though, what happens when your child finishes? Once they've done the course, as so many children have, there is the next step, which is place value. This is a new topic, and I won't go into it now, but it's basically just to do with how do you manipulate numbers and understand what things are worth and represent numbers in different ways. It's the next step in mastering math. So when your child finishes Arithmetic Mastery, that momentum doesn't have to stop, and they can go straight into this. The place value workbook is $149, bringing the total of what you get today with the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 program, the assessment trackers, the access to me, and the place value book to $984. But I've not stopped there. I also want to give you something as the parent, a full guide so that you can understand exactly what the 15 core skills are, how your child can make progress in math, and everything else that you need to know about school so that you can feel well armed when you go and speak to your child's teacher, so that those questions and that language that your child's teacher might use doesn't seem confusing to you anymore, and you understand why your teacher might be doing the things they do in class. As well as that, I've got a certificate for your child when they complete this full course. So when they get to the end, that certificate will be sent out to you so that you can frame it, put it on the fridge, and it's signed by me, allowing them to feel like they've truly completed something. And then something that was a bit of a labour of love of mine, of magic math. I always thought of myself as a bit of a magician when I was younger, but never quite got there. So instead, I've used math to help fulfill that passion. Your child can learn some really cool and fun tricks there, so I've included that within the offer there today as well. Which means, altogether, it's the Arithmetic Mastery program with the 91 lessons, the assessment trackers, 27 of those, access to me, which is normally $129 a month. I've put the 3-month price there. The place value workbook, so that there's no momentum stopping at the end of the Arithmetic Mastery course. They can move straight on to the next thing to master math. The parent guide at $149, a certificate for your child, and the magic math for $59. Altogether, that brings the offer today to $1,241. But that's not what you're going to pay today. But even if you did have to pay that today, I want you to think, what if you paid $1,241 and your child started participating in class and your child's teacher said to you, they're really seeming more confident. They're no longer rejecting the math work. They're really trying their hardest. Would that be worth it? What about if your child was no longer at the bottom of the class, but instead in the middle, just in the middle, secure, no longer concerned about what's going to happen in the future? Would that be worth $1,241? And what about if they master the skill of consistently working at home, making progress, learning how to work independently, a skill they're going to need at high school and beyond? Would that be worth a one-time payment of $1,241? Well, even if it is, that's not what you're going to pay today. Today, I'm only charging you for the course, which is $249. And I do that because the rest of the things there make it 99% sure that you are going to get the progress that you need out of your child just from completing this course with everything else that you need there. I want to make sure that as many parents get hold of this so that their child can make progress. And in case you're still feeling a little unsure, then I've got a guarantee here, which means if your child can complete the first 30 lessons in 30 days and you don't see their progress completely by your discretion and you think this isn't working for them, you just let me know and you'll get your money back and keep all of the bonuses as well. So just to reiterate, you're getting the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 course, the 91 lessons with 15 core modules in order. The assessment trackers, 27 of them, which is worth $199. Access to me, I've put the 3-month price on there, but it's for as long as your child is doing the course. The place value workbook, so there's something for your child to do immediately after. The parent guide, the certificates, and the magic math, leaving you fully equipped to make your child get that progress within 30 days, or within 60 days, within 90 days, however long it takes for them to complete the Arithmetic Mastery program. That is worth $1,241 if you were to buy each of these things individually. But today, you only need to pay for the course, $249. And as a special incentive, the first 10 people that buy from this video are going to get a one-to-one coaching call with me. Normally, I charge $149 for this as a little added extra. But this is where you can come with your child and I will go through the very first lesson of Arithmetic Mastery with you. This is the preliminary assessment to talk about what your child has struggled with, help them on that path, give them that motivation. And every single child that I have worked with in this first session has gone on to complete the entire course. So if you are ready today, the first 10 people, maybe you're already too late, I'm not sure. But if you are one of the first 10 people, then you will get that one-to-one coaching call completely free. So one final recap of what you get here. The Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 course, 91 lessons teaching the 15 core modules that will get your child to master arithmetic. And master arithmetic, make progress in math. The assessments and the trackers, 27 of them, so you can see and your child can see exactly how much improvement they are making from the start right through to the end. Access to me for as long as your child is doing the course. You get to talk to me, ask me questions, share any wins that you have, just to make sure you feel fully supported, because you shouldn't be in this alone. The place value workbook, so that as soon as your child has finished the course, the next thing is there, ready to go. That progress doesn't stop. Place value, remember, is the next thing they need to learn after arithmetic. The parent guide for you, so that you know more about how these 15 core skills work and everything else that's going on in school. The certificate for your child to celebrate that progress and that learning that they've done. And then magic math, purely just for fun for your child. $249 instead of $1,241, instead of $3,000 or $9,000 of getting a tutor. $249. When you're ready, go and click the link and get hold of it. Look forward to seeing you inside the course.